Hello and welcome to the Hockey Hub Podcast, episode 14. Glad you could join us. Adam Pellerin alongside Andy Brickley. We got a jam-packed show for you on this Tuesday. We will, of course, look ahead to the game against the Vancouver Canucks and the return of Jake DeBrusk, Danton Heinen to TD Garden. We'll also have Morgan Geekie on this episode of the Hockey Hub Podcast. And, of course, we will talk about the Bruins' recent play under interim head coach Joe Sacco. Brick, how we doing?
Missed you in Detroit, Adam. We were lucky enough to have Billy Jaffe in town, though, doing double duty out there with his son's hockey team, competing. Heard it was a great tournament. But, yeah, you know, as far as, and this is no disrespect to Detroit, just to kick off the show, but not in my top 5 as far as cities I like to visit. So glad it was just in and out with a couple of points for the Bruins.
Yeah, more importantly, the Bruins were able to get the job done. But, yeah, Billy Jaffe out there with the Boston Junior Eagles in action on the bench, behind the bench as an assistant head coach, and then rinkside for the game against the Red Wings. Before we talk about that game and the first two under Joe Sacco, let's talk about the most recent news. Well, first off, let's go back actually a week before we talk about the most recent news. Jim Montgomery and the Bruins parting ways. He was relieved of his head coaching duties. We never got your thoughts on this podcast, Brick, on the move. So with that, what was your reaction when that decision was made and the announcement was subsequently made?
Well, it just reminds me how difficult, coaching in the National Hockey League, that business of coaching in the NHL is so hard. It's so challenging. You know, you got to chase it. You know, you got to worry about shelf life. You got to worry about all these different personalities that you're trying to motivate. You got to deal with guys that are making significantly more money than you, and it begs the question, does the tail wag the dog in certain situations? So I don't like it when I see people lose their jobs, especially when I think they're more than capable. In fact, I think they're excellent coaches, and I think we've been through a stretch of excellent coaches here over the last several decades for the Boston Bruins that have eventually lost their job for one reason or another. As far as Jim Montgomery is concerned, he knew something dramatic had to happen with this team in order to get their attention. He had used everything in terms of tools available to him as a head coach in this league to try to get these players to play up to their capabilities and up to their expectations, and nothing was working. So in a league where it's so difficult to trade players of significance, and I always reference, because it was huge in my lifetime, the Esposito trade, Rattel Park, etc. Those kinds of deals are so difficult to come by in this league. Why? Well, you got a hard cap, number one. That's problematic. And two, you have to deal with players that are of that caliber that mostly have either no trades or no movement clauses. So it is really difficult to pull off a significant deal that's going to turn your franchise in a different direction and a different identity. So what usually happens? The coaches get fired, whether it's right or wrong. Obviously not for me to say. But I was of the opinion, Adam, that I thought that there was some more runway available to Jim Montgomery for what he had accomplished during the regular seasons for the last 2 seasons and what he has gotten out of these players and his ability to adapt and make changes. You could see it from year 1 to year 2 and in the way he had to coach and still get results. And I was hoping that it would be more than 20 games for him to be part of the solution and not have to change the coach in order to change what was happening in terms of wins and losses.
And based on the reaction of the players, Brick, and again, the players will always try to say the right thing during times like these, but to hear Brad Marchand, to hear Charlie McAvoy, to hear David Pastrnak, even Joe Sacco, and Don Sweeney to a degree, it felt like, from the players' perspective, it felt like they let him down, right? Because of their play on the ice. And I believe Brad Marchand said, because we weren't getting the job done, a good man lost his job today. So to your point, I feel like, yeah, maybe things might have turned around if Jim Montgomery was in the room. Because, again, it's cliche, right? Because I think when a coach loses their job, the cliche is, well, he lost the room. I don't think he lost the room in this case. Maybe the message wasn't getting through. Maybe it was just execution, but I don't think he lost the room. I still think he had the respect of the players. Would you agree?
I do. I do. You don't have personal success like a number of players up and down that lineup, whether you're a really good player or a guy that was a marginal player. And you have real good success personally, statistically, in those 2 years where they were winning tons of hockey games, and then all of a sudden tune out the guy that helped you get there. That makes no sense to me. You don't connect those dots. Well, I don't anyway. Someone would have to connect them for me. I think the players all along, the criticism is, where was this accountability, out in the media from these players, 10 days before he got fired? And I'm saying it was there. But the focus wasn't there because everyone kept waiting for this team to turn around. I mean, the expectation was that this was not going to continue for, game after game after game. And I thought the players, when they were interviewed, when they weren't playing well, I thought publicly they were taking accountability, but the focus wasn't there. So to criticize the same kind of comments where they take a lot of the blame for the coach losing his job was always there. But what you do criticize the players for, and I believe this to be true, is that you just can't show up. They talked about a disjointed training camp, and they talked about players not taking a look clear enough in the mirror to assess their own abilities, and some guys got paid, some guys got contracts, some guys had opportunity to get more ice time and get more pats on the back for the success that they had. And I think their opinion of themselves probably was greater than the effort that they were putting out there as a group, certainly, and as individuals. And I think that was part of the equation as well for the coach losing his job.
Yeah, I think a lot of the players have acknowledged it to some degree, too.
I agree.
And so Jim Montgomery was out of the job for all of, 5 days before he was hired by the St. Louis Blues. And it's interesting, right, to your point earlier, Brick, we've had some great coaches walk through the door in the Bruins organization, and the last 3 now have won the Jack Adams, right? And all 3 were without a job for less than a week. Claude Julien was hired by the Canadiens, and I think it was actually 8 days after the Bruins had relieved him of his duties. And then Bruce Cassidy, of course, hired by the Las Vegas Golden Knights in the offseason. And now Jim Montgomery is back with St. Louis, where he spent 2 years as an assistant under Craig Berube. So what are your thoughts on Jim Montgomery being the Blues head coach?
Well, first of all, an educated guess would say, given the body of work that Jim Montgomery did in his time in St. Louis as an assistant, I think was an eye-opener for the Blues organization. I think they really liked him and valued him and coveted him and didn't want him to leave unless he got a better opportunity to be a head coach, which is what happened in Boston. So I think they always had him on their radar, but they had Berube at the time. He was a Stanley Cup champion. And when that fell apart and Drew Bannister came in, I think there was still always an eye on, quality head coaches that may be available. And when they saw what was happening in Boston, I mean, to me, this is not a surprise, number one. In most cases, Adam, and if you look through history, when coaches start to get fired, right, when that first domino tips, there's usually others to follow. And you don't have to look too far around this National Hockey League right now with what's going on in certain cities, certain environments, certain organizations, that the expectation is that other coaches are going to lose their job. And if you're sitting there in St. Louis and you see a guy that you have a tremendous amount of respect for and regard for, and now he is available, and it's somewhat unfair to Drew Bannister, but this is the nature of the National Hockey League. You have an opportunity to get one of the best coaches in the league. Obviously, by giving him 5 years, that's what they thought of him. And you don't want someone else that's about to fire their coach that beats you to the punch, so to speak. Am I making any sense at all?
You are making sense.
So if Montgomery's available and I'm running St. Louis and I have an opportunity to go get this guy, get him long term, and I think he's an excellent coach that can really help us get us where we need to go, I'm not going to hesitate. I'm going to go and I'm going to make that move. And obviously, the same was the same with Claude, and it was the same with Butchie. And obviously, Butchie had great success his first year in Vegas. So, I don't know what St. Louis's immediate future is. I haven't done a deep dive. We just saw them twice in the last week, so unfortunately, we don't get to see them again with Monty coaching that squad. But that's not a surprise that he knew. He knew what his reputation and his value was across the league. When you had those moments to talk to him, maybe in the lobby of the hotel, trying to figure out what's going on with this team, in those conversations, Adam, that you have when you travel with the team and that you build trust within the coach and the analyst in order to have a feel for what's going on without breaking that bond with the coach. He was aware of what his reputation was around the league. So, and he knew the strong possibility that it was trending in the direction of him getting fired. I mean, he's a realist. He knew what was going on, and so therefore, with all those variables, it doesn't surprise me that he's back gainfully employed.
So, I'm not great at math, but I did see, there was well, actually, not a report. Somebody just pointed this out. So Drew Bannister, of course, took over for Craig Berube, who was fired from his job last year, and wasn't named the head coach until May 7th. Now, what's interesting about that's just after the Bruins beat the Leafs in 7 games, right? So had the Bruins lost to the Leafs in that first round, who knows what would have happened here in Boston, and who knows if, potentially Jim Montgomery could have been hired all the way back then. We'll never know, but it is interesting to point. Maybe Doug Armstrong was waiting to see how things played out, and made
what do they call that? The butterfly effect?
Yes, that's right. Exactly. So
you might not be good at math, but you're good at
conspiracy theories. Yeah, or the butterfly effect, right? Ashton Kutcher, I believe, that was a movie back in the day. You probably never.
I missed that one.
Yeah, you did.
That's not on Turner Classic.
No, it's not. It hasn't made the cut yet. All right.
Maltese Falcon and The Big Sleep was on last night. If you wanted to watch,
You are an old soul, man. I've told you this before. Hey, just a quick thing about Jim Montgomery, though. And this is a silly, little, stupid story, but it speaks to how great of a communicator he was, right? And that was one of the things the players always said about him in Boston, how great of a communicator he was. Well, I was on the road last year. We were on the road last year, I should say. And, we had the pregame media availability. And, you tend to ask, lineup changes, starting goaltender, right? And so I had kicked it off by asking, who's the starting goaltender. He said, it'll be somebody, right? That's how he answered, something to that effect, right? And so I said, all right, fine, right? And so finish up the media availability, and, I'm by the little studio we had on the road, and every rink that we go to, the visiting rinkside reporter has a little setup where they can watch the game and listen to the producer in the truck. And so he came and found me before puck drop and said, hey, I just wanted to let you know that, I didn't tell you who the starting goaltender was. It's just a gamesmanship thing. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't, but I just wanted you to know that. And he didn't have to do that, Brick, but the fact that he did that, meant a lot, right? Because he felt like it was necessary that he tell me that, right? And so his ability to communicate extended beyond the dressing room. So it was a nice little story about Jim Montgomery and his time in Boston. You're watching the Hockey Hub, and if you like what you hear, then make sure to like and subscribe to the show. Hockey Hub can be found on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and wherever else podcasts are found. And now we've turned the page to interim head coach Joe Sacco, and 2-0 under Joe Sacco to start his head coaching career with the Bruins, the 8th Bruins head coach to start 2-0. What stood out to you through the first 2 games, Brick?
Well, the 2 wins. The fact that they gave up 1 goal in 6 periods. Okay, Utah, Detroit, not offensive dynamos. I get it. But the eyeball test was better. Certainly wasn't perfect. Still plenty of room to grow. But they were better in the middle of the ice. They were better in their own zone. They were much, much better in neutral zone in terms of killing plays and not allowing people into the offensive end. The goaltending has been solid when you talk about Korpisalo, and it was great to see Swayman have a pretty good performance in Detroit to allow them to win that game 2-1 because they need his A game. They need him to get closer to his A game. He needs to build. It's been a slow process after missing camp. So those are the things that jump out to me, Adam. We talked about it on the broadcast: goaltending, team defense, special teams. And special teams, I'm going to have to start with the PK because the Bruins aren't an offensive dynamo either in terms of the ability to score goals and their power play being effective. So you need the penalty killing. And that was much better. The body position, the stick position, the decision-making, when to be aggressive, when to hold your structure, get those 200-foot clears. There were still some issues in that regard. Dig it in on faceoffs in order to get early possession, in order to kill the penalty. I liked a lot of what I saw in those areas of the game. What I don't like is the lack of finish. I'm not sure how you teach offense at the NHL level. But their power play looked a little bit better in terms of possession, using the bumper, creating more 2-on-1s, even just for possession in order to get better looks. Shot mentality, I think, could be better. I mean, I don't know what's going on with 88. Pastrnak probably could have had 3 or 4 goals himself in that game in Detroit.
He turned down so many opportunities.
I wanted to grab, Cam was on the trip, and I wanted to grab him. I didn't get an opportunity to. And it needed to be one-on-one, not in front of a group of people. And, as a guy that was a prolific goal scorer in this league, tell me what Pasternak's thinking right now. Where is he? What space is he in? Because he's got 2 goals in his last 13 games, I think it is.
That's exactly what it is.
And he gets plenty of offensive time, meaning, he gets plenty of rope offensively. You live with his turnovers. You want him to be creative. He's going to play the majority of the power play minutes. So where are the goals? Why are you not getting your shot off? Why aren't you thinking? Why aren't you getting separation in that quickly? All the stuff that we've gotten used to, and having not been a 50-goal scorer, I don't know what that headspace is like, and maybe Cam could shed some light and educate me as to what Pasta's dealing with right now, because I don't know, because I'm so used to, to that lack of thinking, lack of overthinking, and just letting my natural skill level take over. And it hasn't been there for a stretch, and it's hurting the Bruins in terms of, not only building leads, but extending leads and securing points. You don't want to have to win 1-0, 2-1 all the time, right, Adam? But that's the way it is right now, because they don't have that finishing touch, and they need a lot more help from guys that are paid to score goals.
Yeah, overhandling, overthinking maybe with David Pastrnak. It's just, because he's so, obviously such a talented
and he still had
goal scorer.
And he still had 2 unbelievable shots. One time on the power play, and the goal he gets from side to side, and the other one was the turnover. Great pass. I think it was from Zacha early in the period, in the first period. Point blank, and he pump faked, got him to commit. Usually that's over that left arm under the crossbar, but, again, come away with no goals.
Yeah, contributing to the offensive struggles, no doubt. By the way, the Bruins are 32nd now in the league as we record this in goals for per game, which is just incredible to think about. But
and I use the word pride. When Monty was here, I was asking him, do the guys take enough pride in playing defense and keeping the puck out of the net, and come to the bench and say that was an awesome shift because we didn't give anything up, even though we were in our own zone for the shift. And I got the sense that wasn't there. I'm seeing more of it, and I think the Bruins historically have had a ton of pride in how they play without the puck, and that's where Joe Sacco needs to build that confidence of this team, and then hope the offense falls in line. The more you keep the puck out of the net, it seems like you have the puck more, and more offense comes as a result.
Yep. I do want to ask you, Brick, why do you think we've seen, the defensive? Jim, we just talked about how great Jim Montgomery was, right? Great coach. Did Joe Sacco go back to basics? Is that as simple as that? Just to, maybe oversimplify a little bit, just going back to, hey, look, this is what we have been good at historically. This is what we need to do moving forward to be better in terms of defensive structure.
Yeah, when you're losing hockey games, no matter what it looks like, Adam, what you do is you obviously lose some confidence, and then you start to play more like zone. You just start like, I'm going to protect. I'm going to back off the blue line, and I'm just going to protect, keep everything in front of me.
Playing not to lose.
Yeah, and it's the worst way to play. And when you have changes on the blue line, so Zadorov comes in, he's going to get significant minutes. He's a big hitter. He's at age 29, and you hope he's really starting to figure that game out, because everybody that talked about Zadorov when they had him or played with him was, he has the opportunity to be a really good impact defenseman, but he gets a little sleepy. He doesn't think the game the way he should think it 60 minutes a game, and those little mistakes that creep in end up being big mistakes. So you were hoping that at this point in his career, most defensemen, when they get to this point, and I remember when Jack used to talk about it all the time, because he would reference Dennis Potvin and says, when you get to 250 games or 300 games in the NHL, you start to figure it out as a defenseman. Well, we're well beyond that when you're talking about Zadorov. So, if your partner, if you're Peak, who's a good defensive player, and you're playing with Zadorov, and all of a sudden you start playing that zone, you start backing off, you're not killing plays in the neutral zone, that's bad formula. Mason Lowry, all right, look at this kid he has tremendous offensive potential. You want him to play to his offensive strengths, but you still got to defend in this league, and you still got to be part of the equation, and you still got to do your job, whether it's in center ice in your own zone, and that's a learning curve. There's mistakes. And we talked about it before the game in Detroit. Why playing with a guy like McAvoy? Because McAvoy's your best defenseman, and that should help Mason Lohrei. And it could be really good when you do have possession, because now all 5 guys are good offensive players if you're playing them with the top 6 forwards. But he's going to make mistakes defensively. So now you need your layers. Now you need good centerman play. You don't have fast skating defensemen to deny plays in the neutral zone. Carlo's a good skater. He's a long reach guy. He needs to stand up more, and he breaks up more plays just with his stick and his body position. Again, backing off. So everybody was guilty of it. There were some changes on the back end. They weren't using their skating ability to pressure plays in center ice. They weren't getting that first forward back pressure that has to be relentless. You watch a team like Carolina play. Everyone talks about their speed and how fast they play. They play fast defensively.
Yeah.
And this is what I'm talking about. So if you have that good back pressure from the forward group, you stand up in the neutral zone. And they played, what did we say? Not connected, disjointed. And it was like that for too long, and they couldn't get on the same page. They couldn't work together. They couldn't find the elixir to solve the problem, and that's where they were. So this is what I'm seeing from the team. They have to get back to that skating game, and the skating game means skating defensively in order to be the team that they want to be.
Yeah, taking a couple of steps in the right direction over the last 2 games anyway under Joe Sacco as he begins his stint as interim head coach. For more on the Bruins and the biggest trending news in the sports world, check out Boston Has Entered the Chat, hosted by George Bellecci and Travis Thomas, available on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and wherever else podcasts are found. Joining us now on the Hockey Hub podcast, Bruins forward Morgan Geekie. You know what? You're making history, man. You are the first Bruins player to appear on the Hockey Hub podcast. We've had alumni, first current Bruins player. I mean, if you want to take a couple of moments to gather yourself. Yeah.
I will. I said this is incredible.
It's unbelievable.
What an honor.
It's fantastic. No, but seriously, thanks for doing this with us. Talk a little bit about the state of the team, your year, and some fun stuff too. But I guess we'll just start with the most recent stuff. You guys have won your last 2. Defense, special teams, a theme over the last couple of games. What's your take on the last couple?
I mean, just trying to figure some things out. Obviously, we didn't start very well. I think last 2 is the team we know we can kind of play like, and the way we're building as a team, I think, is important too. And I think you see that in the last couple of games, just the way we're growing into our game. Pucks aren't going in. I mean, just for anyone really.
Right.
Obviously, 1-0 and 2-1 is not the way you can win games in this league consistently. But just kind of getting back to the team we know we can be. We have a lot of good players in that room. Can create a lot of offense, I think, and it's going to come. I mean, everyone knows that it kind of comes in waves, and got to find ways to win when the pucks aren't going in.
Is the last couple of games, obviously we'll get into Jim Montgomery in a moment, but is it more about just getting back to basics, getting back to the identity of what Bruins hockey is?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that kind of when we were going through this, and just how the Bruins have always been a notorious tough team to play against, and you don't get that stereotype or name without living up to that for a long time. And I think we kind of got away from that a little bit, and we got a lot of big guys in that room and a lot of strong guys. And I think for us, just learning to play to our strengths is a big one. And we had a couple new guys this year for sure, and some guys leave and whatever. That's kind of the nature of the beast. But I think for us, that's just the main thing. It's just getting back to being tough to play against, playing Bruins hockey, and it's cool when you say Bruins hockey, everybody knows what you're talking about. So
right.
It's pretty easy to try to find your way back there. It's just about executing and getting back to the basics.
You mentioned some changes, obviously new faces in the offseason, some departures as well. And we also heard, from Don Sweeney to Cam Neely and others say that training camp was sort of disjointed because of some of the injuries you had, some of the guys coming back from surgery, some of the other things that were going on. Did it feel disjointed from your perspective, or was it just a case of you going about your own business and not really paying too much attention to that?
I mean, for me personally, it's kind of just, camp is camp. It's
right.
kind of when you come into go to work, and you spend all summer kind of preparing for camp and being ready for that. And obviously injuries and things like that happen throughout camp, and guys being out, you know, for the start of it. But I mean, we're all professionals. We should all kind of just go about our business and do that. But to say it's disjointed, I mean, I don't know. I think it's just a lot of new faces. Some of the older faces, like you know, Marshy didn't play in the preseason,
right,
things like that. Maybe that mattered to some people, but I know in our room for sure it was kind of just something we tried to leave. You know, it was going to run its course, and he came back for the start of the year. So yeah, I don't think there's much to say. Maybe, I know, as a player at least, you know, it's just about getting that group, you know, conjoined together and being a team.
You mentioned Brad Marchand. Some of the other leaders spoke after Jim Montgomery and the Bruins parted ways. Talked about it, basically saying, "Hey, you know what? This is on us. You know, we let them down." Did it sort of feel that way for you?
Yeah, for sure. You know, coming in here, you know, I'm a pretty fresh face with the Bruins, but you know, coming in, just the respect everybody had for him, you know, last year and the season they had before I got here. We all knew how good of a coach he is, how good of a person he is, and definitely, I think, you know, we knew we weren't playing up to the potential that we could play to, and the standard maybe sunk a little bit. And then obviously there's changes and things like that, but I think there's a small part of everybody that definitely knows they could give a little more, or it just didn't work out the way that it was supposed to. But you know, he's a great person and a great coach, and obviously he just landed on his feet. So you know, it definitely wasn't a surprise to anybody to see him to get another job. So you know, he's a good coach, and it's just one of those things that, you know, hockey's a business at the end of the day, and you know, he's a great person, and I know everyone in this organization has great things to say about him, for sure.
For you personally, last few games now, you've been with Pav and Pasta, and you know, noticed in the last game, you know, just from my seat watching you, and a couple of cross ice passes that you made, you know, just short of connecting or coming up short, but it seemed like some of that chemistry is starting to sort of form with you guys. And then again, just from my untrained eye, it sort of looked like. Does it feel that way for you though? Yeah,
for sure. You know, I played with him a little bit last year,
right?
And it's good. I mean, me and Dave, our kids are around the same age, so we spend a little bit of time together away from the
rink. I love how you call him Dave, by the way. Everyone calls him Pasta. I love how you call him Dave.
I called him Dave I don't know when it was, and someone's like, "Who is Dave?" It's like, that's his name. Yeah, but our kids are around the same age.
Yeah.
So we've spent some time together away from the rink. And then Pav's awesome. I mean, he's pretty quiet and doesn't say a ton, but he's the best guy and someone you always want in your corner too. So yeah, definitely for me, playing with those two guys for a little while now, it's good. I mean, pucks aren't going in. I mean, it feels like, you know, I'm snake bitten. I feel like everyone could say the same thing. But I mean, you see the chances, they're coming, and like I said earlier, they're going to come in waves, and you know, sometimes somebody's going to break the ice for us, and you know, things are going to start going in. So it's just about, at least for us, is just keeping on, you know, the gas and just being able to make those plays, even though, you know, they may not be, you might not finish them. At least you're getting chances. I was always taught that, you know, getting chances and not scoring on them is not a problem. It's when you stop getting those chances and stop creating opportunities is when, you know, things should maybe make a change or something like that.
Yeah, and you had said earlier in the year that you're the kind of guy, like, you ignore the noise a lot, but you're the kind of guy that, like, kind of pays attention to it a little bit. You read things, you hear things. Is it more difficult to do that when things aren't maybe going well individually or team-wise, to sort of see what people are saying?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean,
do you use that as motivation?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I just like to know. I mean, I think it's, as a person right now, you kind of forget, like, that you're a hockey player. Like, I used to look up to the person that I am now.
Yeah,
like, see them play in the NHL, and it's like, I know the coach for the Celtics said that one thing about, I think it was Jason Tatum, and how he has to deal with all the adversity and everything everybody says to him, and he's like, no, he gets to. And to me, I was like, that's a great point. It's like, there's a lot of people that wish they were in our shoes and could play for the Boston Bruins and all that and play in the NHL just for a day. So for me, like, everybody's a fan, everyone's got an opinion. I was like, it may be educated, it may be uneducated. I have a pretty good understanding.
What percentage of that do you think?
I'll leave that up to the listener to interpret. But
yeah.
For me, it's like, I don't know. It's fun. You're a fan. It's like, I'm a fan of football. I'm a fan of baseball. It's
right.
Like, I see those things, and my opinion on those guys doesn't matter because they didn't put up enough fantasy points for me this week. It's like, I know nothing about football. It's like, I'm still gonna be mad at them because they didn't get me however many points I needed.
Right.
So for me, it's like just a different view on things, and obviously there's times you got to take a step back. Especially in like Boston, it's a huge sports market, and people care so much about the team. And you saw that like when we lost those few games there, and we're getting booed off the ice. And it's like, it's something that comes with playing in Boston. And as much as it sucks at the time, it's like we probably deserve it.
Yep.
So accountability is a big thing. But you know, we showed up the last couple games. I think even a 1-0 win.
Yep.
Everyone's educated enough to know what's going on in hockey and know we played a solid game. So it's like they're going to reward you for that. So just showing up for the city is a big thing. But yeah, for me personally, I was like, I mean, Twitter's a crazy place anyway.
Oh, you're telling me.
So it's I find it entertaining. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, they come after broadcasters too. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. Yeah,
actually,
a little bit. Yeah,
I mean,
it happens from time to time.
Yeah,
you got to roll with the punches a little bit.
I mean,
I'd rather, but your point about the crowd like booing you, like as funny as it sounds, you'd rather have them boo you than not, because if they're not booing you, that means they don't care anymore, right?
Yeah.
So if they're coming after you, at least they care about the product, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I mean, as a player, like, I'm sure they're frustrated. We're frustrated just with how everything went and has gone. I think we're starting to turn a new page and grow into our game. But yeah, I mean, it's like, I understand the frustration. It's like you don't want to hear it, but it's like someone's got to tell you, and I mean, they'll tell us for sure.
Oh yeah, they'll let you know, man.
It's fun. I mean, they'll boo you, but they'll sing your praises too. So
absolutely,
it's not that's. The negativity isn't the only thing that we see. I mean, it's not even negative. It's just kicking the butt. No,
it's an investment. Yeah. You know, the fans invest because they care, and that's where you want to be as a player, I would imagine, right?
Yeah.
And I can see, obviously, you appreciate that. So I'm looking at the schedule, right, and I'm seeing some other guy with your last name in the league, Connor. I don't know if you know him or not, but no, your younger brother getting an opportunity in the NHL this year for the first time with the Lightning after the trade. Did you just call him like before he made his, how did that work? Like congratulate him? I don't know what kind of relationship you guys have, but
yeah, we're close. We're really close.
Yeah.
I mean, our family's all like, we talk every day.
Nice.
Me and him, I mean, we don't talk about hockey a ton. I try to give him some pointers here and there.
Yeah.
I mean, I was trying to explain to him how to get a cashier's check for his apartment the other day, and I was like, those are the things that we talk about. It's not about hockey.
Yeah, well, you're like the married old father now,
I am,
right?
yeah, I'm an old guy. But I was like, I went through all those things, and it's tough when you, for the first time especially.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think he's 20 years old, so it's like a couple years younger than I was, and going down there to a new team with guys you don't really know, especially coming from Arizona. They got a lot of young, youthful guys, good players, and then you go to Tampa Bay where they've won, you know, however many cups, they've been to the playoffs however many years, and it's a little different culture maybe, but it's good. I think he fits in. He's very outgoing and maybe the opposite of me, but it's good. He fits in. I'm sure you can tell by his turtleneck and his tinted visor and no teeth. It's maybe the opposite, but
dude, what's up with the pregame shower bath? Like, when did that start?
I have no idea. He was in junior, I think, when he started the walking backwards. Okay. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't seen that, no.
Yeah, so I don't know. Whatever. He started the walking backwards thing. The water thing, I've never even seen that before.
Wow. Okay.
I saw it on maybe
social media. Like it was on,
it was on
the
TikTok
NHL
or
Tampa,
NHL,
yeah.
Somebody would have posted
it. It's become a thing down there, I guess.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, I don't know.
When you talk,
he's
you don't
something
talk
else,
about
man.
that.
He's the best, but he's also I can't even put it into words. He's something else. He's good.
How much are you looking forward to, you're going to get to play against him in January?
Yeah, I mean, we've always been a little bit far apart in age.
Yeah.
So we've never really played together, against each other. We skated with each other in the summer for a little bit, and it's always fun. But I mean, at that point, we try to like play with each other. I like playing with him, and he likes playing with me. Just obvious connection. I'm sure you can put that together. But yeah, it's fun. It'll be cool. I think it'll be really cool for our parents and the rest of our family. Yeah, I don't really know. It's tough to know what to expect.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not.
It's not, but like I know you guys say like game by game, but like yeah, you're right. It is close. Like
yeah,
it's 2 months
I think we've got the mom's trip. I think is that trip too. So my mom will get a front row seat, and I think my wife's going to fly down for that too, just to see everybody. So it'll be fun. He's a great player, and he's kind of coming into his own. So if he has questions or anything, I'll definitely help him out or whatever. But he's a smart kid.
Not those games though.
No, not those ones. Yeah, we probably won't talk much. We'll get the courtesy picture for, and that's about it.
Awesome. Well, hey, listen, I don't want to take up any more of your time. Really appreciate you coming on the pod, and good luck the rest of the way. I'll see you obviously at Warrior and TD Garden, but in terms of coming in here and doing this with us, really appreciate it, man.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's great. Awesome. Honored to be the first guest.
Yeah, hell yeah. Awesome. Morgan Geekie on the Hockey Hub. All right, thanks again to Morgan Geekie for joining us on the Hockey Hub. You are watching the Hockey Hub, if you are watching us. Maybe you're watching on YouTube. Maybe you're watching on Facebook or Twitch. And make sure to like and subscribe to the show, please. If you're listening to us, maybe it's on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and wherever else podcasts are found. We appreciate it. Andy Brickley back with us now, and looking ahead. Brick, there's been a lot going on, and there's a lot on deck. So on deck is, first and foremost, a matchup against the Vancouver Canucks. So facing a better team tonight in the Canucks than you've seen over the last few games, albeit they're dealing with some injuries as well. They haven't had their starting goaltender, Thatcher Demko, although he could be making his way back probably when the Canucks return home, which, by the way, the Bruins will be out west in the middle of December, so you could see Thatcher Demko. No JT Miller. He's out for the foreseeable future. It'll be interesting to see if Quinn Hughes gets any sort of discipline for his hit on Josh Norris the other night against the Sens. Brock Besser has been day-to-day, so they're dealing with some injuries, but they're coming off a win over the Senators, and guess who scored twice against the Ottawa Senators? That would be Jake DeBrusk, who is making his return to Boston along with Danton Heinen. So, Brick, that's setting the stage for the matchup against the Canucks. What are you looking forward to in this game?
Well, first I'll start with Jake DeBrusk. To have his best game, his most productive game right before he's coming into Boston, and we know he can be a streaky guy. He's positioned pretty well to feel good about his game coming in to Boston, maybe have something to prove. But the absence of JT Miller, the absence of Thatcher Demko, those are two big holes in Vancouver's lineup. But I think the Bruins, because of the coaching change and only played twice, and the fact that they were able to win a couple of games with a different kind of optics, the eye test, that they're more committed to a team game and team defense, I think is where you have to begin. You see Vancouver twice a year, and you do game plan for them, and you do the pre-scout, and you try to watch games prior to when you're playing them, even from an analyst's point of view, to try to see what they do, how they work their power play, penalty, etc. But this is really all about the Bruins. What are the Bruins doing? How are they playing, regardless of the opponent? This could be the best team in the league coming in, and you almost don't worry about it. It's what are we doing? How are we going to play? Let's play our best brand of hockey and let the results fall where they may. And I think if the Bruins have that attitude, you're not going to worry about Vancouver so much. But, it's a fine line between winning and losing in this league, Adam. You know that. There seems to be more parity every single year. There's a lot of teams that are in that somewhere around NHL 500, a little over, a little under. The Bruins probably have the same amount of points as Vancouver, same amount of wins, but who's the better team? Who knows? Who knows? And when are you getting them? What's their roster look like? How healthy are they? Are there special teams out? What are they getting in net? All those things are question marks for every team every night. And I'm more concerned right now with the Bruins doing what they need to do to build off a couple of much-needed victories, and that'll be our approach, certainly, when puck drops on Tuesday night.
So remember Bob Lobel, of course, right? He used to say, you know, why can't we get guys like that, right? And so I think Bruins fans, you know, will see Jake DeBrusk and Danton Heinen maybe to a degree, maybe more DeBrusk though, because the big storyline going into the year, right, was who's going to fill that second line right wing.
Yeah, I mean,
and the Bruins offensively, you know, obviously we mentioned 32nd in the league.
Yeah, but that's recency bias.
No. Well, that's like, from a fan's perspective.
You know, when Jake
right?
said he didn't want to be a Bruin, there were people lined up to drive him to the airport.
I understand. I got you. And
You know,
again, that's why the Bob Lobel thing is so funny, right? Because
exactly.
I had him in town, but you know, do they miss Jake DeBrusk?
Yeah, of course, and they missed Danton Heinen. They're good hockey players.
Yep.
You know, the Bruins needed to do some things in order to improve their team to do better in the postseason, but you got to get there first. Okay, that's the dilemma. So they wanted to get bigger, stronger, tougher, and they did that with the acquisitions that they made. But did it allow them to play faster? Are they strong enough down the middle? Do they have enough on the outside of players that can you know? Monty used to say we're not relentless on our puck pursuit. Well, those two guys could get up and down the ice when you talk about DeBrusk and Heinen, and now they're not in the lineup anymore. So they might not have that sandpaper to their game, but they were good hockey players. And when you're struggling to find wins, all of a sudden you think back, wow, we used to have guys that helped us win games because they played a certain way. And that was absent.
Yep. And so they'll be back in town on Tuesday night, and so that's what's on tap. And of course, you know, the first of a back-to-back. They got the Isles on Wednesday, and then the traditional Black Friday game at home against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Which let
me ask you, Adam.
Yeah.
Did you see the hit by Quinn Hughes?
I did. I did not think it was a major.
Well, I saw a hit by Jamie Benn on Brandon Carlo down in Dallas, and that wasn't a major. So what I saw from Quinn Hughes, I don't think so.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's just like and again, I mean, how much time do we have, right? I mean, we can talk about the inconsistencies.
And there's a lot of questionable hits going on in the league right now, as there always is every year.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean,
gray areas of body contact.
Did you think Brad Marchand deserved a penalty shot the other night based on what we saw in Dallas? Evgeny Dadonov, you know.
Well, it doesn't matter what I think, right? I mean, I saw a penalty shot in Dallas that I didn't think was worthy of a penalty shot. But
anyway.
And by the way, that's the only penalty shot goal this year as of a day ago.
Yeah.
Dadonov.
Yep, and it wasn't. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so Black Friday against Penguins, and then December 1st to kick off the month.
Yeah.
How about 100 years of Boston Bruins hockey? The Canadiens come to town celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Bruins' first game ever against the Montreal Maroons. A 2-1 win for the Bruins, by the way, in that game 100 years ago. Brick, we had such a great time last year with the Centennial season, seeing all these legends walk through the door, recognizing all of these eras of Boston Bruins hockey and how it has contributed to what we have today and the organization that we see before us. But to celebrate the 100 years, to be here, to be present, to be alive, to celebrate that, and take that a step further, selfishly for you and I to be a part of the broadcast to celebrate it. What does that mean to you?
Well, first of all, Adam, you know, when I first was being educated on what NESN and the Bruins were going to do for the Centennial season, my immediate assumption was that when the year ended a year ago, whenever it ended, in the regular season, end of the playoffs, however deep the Bruins went, that was the end of the Centennial season, and the great NESN Bruins historian Steve Garabedian said, no, it goes all the way to December 1st. That's the actual 100 years, and the Bruins are going to play the Canadiens. I'm like, oh, awesome. We get to celebrate another 3 months of hockey season before we actually conclude the Centennial season. So I think it's pretty cool. But anytime Bruins Canadiens get together, whether you think the rivalry still exists, it still exists in my mind, my heart. And it's changed, obviously. We've seen different generations of Bruins teams. Obviously, the 88 team, first time in forever, winning in the postseason. You know, I think back to 70 and 72 when I was 8 and 10, and the Bruins were winning the Cups with that absolute gang of a wagon of talented, tough teams led by Bobby and Phil. Neither year did they go through the Canadiens to win those Stanley Cups, as everyone's well aware, and all the heartache and everything that I experienced as this whole New England experience. If you were huge Bruins fans, losing to the Canadiens when the Bruins had great teams, but as much as I hated the Montreal Canadiens, I had so much respect for them because I appreciate quality hockey, and they had great players. you had to admire them. You know, as much as they beat you, as much as they tormented you, the games were great. The talent was awesome to see. It was always must-watch hockey. You know, you loved that they played as many times as they did. You loved that you had to play down out of the division. You know, I'm going beyond the original 6, you know, beyond 1967. So, yeah, so for it to be Boston-Montreal Centennial Game to wrap up what's been a spectacular celebration of Bruins history, and to be part of it on the broadcast side, spectacular. To be a small piece of it in terms of on the player side, you know, I had my experience playing against the Canadiens as a Bruin. My first year in Boston, we lost in round 2 to the Montreal Canadiens. That killed me. I can't believe you. I think I was on the ice for the clinching, you know, the series clinching goal by. Well, Bobby Smith was out there, not one of my favorite players. I remember him trying to deal with him. He was a hard guy to cover. So that hurt. I got a first-hand taste of what it was to lose to the Canadiens in the playoffs as a player. But then, you know, even despite all my injuries over the next several years and not really being active enough to thoroughly enjoy beating the Canadiens, we beat them 3 more years out of those, you know, three in a row, right? Starting after '88. So, you know, to be around for that, you know, so after the great success in '88, and then losing my first year in Boston, then beating them the next 3 years, that's pretty satisfying.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, what a great perspective to have, you know, to experience, you know, being a part of the Bruins-Canadiens rivalry as a player, being a part of it as a fan first. And as a fan first. I was just going to say that. You're right. Yeah, as a fan first. That is a really unique and special perspective. So that's pretty cool. And I think back, you know, of obviously 2011, you know, being down 2-0 in that series and coming back and winning in 7 games over the Montreal Canadiens, and you know, and you being in the broadcast booth for that. Is just incredible. But to, you know, go back to the Centennial season for a moment, because again, you know, we spent a season celebrating it, and this is the 1-year anniversary, but it all goes back to all those great Bruins teams and all those great Bruins players and those eras of Bruins hockey, and to see all of those individuals walk through the door. And, you know, if you go back to the beginnings, right, where you have all of the family members of the great players in Bruins history, you know, being honored at centered ice, and then as time went on, you have, you know, some of the players that are still with us, fortunately, to be back in the building and to be honored by the fans. And I think that's, you know, what I want to pay tribute to right now is the fact that the fans are, they get it. You know, we just get it here, man. We do, you know, and to hear the ovation, you know, for players who are around well before any of these fans were born, because the fans appreciate the history of this town, you know, like you do, right? Like I do. We appreciate the players and teams that came before us, because it helps contribute to what we see on the ice today. It's just, it's very special.
Yeah, and a couple of thoughts on that, Adam. More Stanley Cups, you know, I mean, yeah, they've won their share of cups, but nowhere near the number of cups you felt like was within reach. I mean, just about every year in the decade of the 70s, right, with the 2 iterations of what the Bruins were all about, you know, the Laura Espo generation and then the Don Cherry generation, which was a totally different approach to how they were going to win. And, you know, even in the years that we've been working together and covering the Bruins, starting in 11, but 13 and 19, and, you know, just different seasons, you know, years when they were President's Trophy teams and should have had deep playoff run, whatever it might have been, you wish there was more Stanley Cup. So that being said, not a negative, just an observation and a dream, a wishful could have, you know, that would have been even more awesome, and more to celebrate. The other thing is, you know, of all the players that I was fortunate enough to come across, meet, spend time with that were legends within this organization, I have to give a shout out to Milt Schmidt. You know, I wasn't around to watch and appreciate him as a player, other than the highlights that we're able to show that exist about Milt Schmidt, and then to read about the legendary player and his line, and, you know, his service to his country at a time when you were right in the prime of your career, etc. And then to have met him later in life when I was playing for the Bruins, but more importantly when I was part of the alumni and the alumni hockey team, and Milt was still around and still vibrant and strong and sharp, very, very intelligent, and the history of what he meant to this organization, you know, as a player and as an executive. And the trade really that turned this franchise around in the 70s. But the man himself was just, and he had the best phrase ever, you know, Once a Bruin, always a Bruin. You play one game as a Bruin, you're an alumni. And that speaks to everybody that's ever put that jersey on and had that B on the crest and the name on the back and skated in the Garden or the TD Garden or whatever your history is. It was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. And I'll take that with me the rest of my life, the impact that he had and the association that we have with the Bruins, and to know that there was people like that were pioneers as far as, what the Bruins organization is and has always been about.
Yeah, well said. And by the way, our next episode will be episode 15. It'll be the Milt
Nice.
Schmidt episode, so there you go.
Nice.
Brick, we're not going to see you on the Hockey Hub podcast. We'll see you on the broadcast, of course, for Bruins hockey, but we won't see you before Thanksgiving. And I know we've talked about it on this podcast, and we've talked about it behind the scenes as well. Thanksgiving's your holiday, man.
It is.
So what are you looking forward to this year?
Well, since we lost, the matriarch of my family, my mother, several years ago, things have changed a little bit. She always organized the best Thanksgiving meal, and my sister Lila was always right there, shoulder to shoulder, making all the great food. So this year I will not be spending any time with the Brickley side of the family. I'll be with my wife's side of the family. So I'm going to miss the squash and the turnip that my mother used to make. That was out of this world. But no, we'll be with family, my wife's side, and then we got the game on. Well, it's not our broadcast, but be at the Garden on Black Friday.
Sure.
And but my family's going to head down in Nantucket because of the Christmas tree lighting that follows Thanksgiving.
Yep.
And then a week later, the winter stroll that they like to take part in. Of course, we'll be working. And, but Thanksgiving itself, I mean, the window's pretty small when you're in this business, right? When you're in the hockey business, the window's not very big. So it'll be a day of family, a day of reflection. My wife just lost her mother, so there'll be a lot of reflection. So the timing is always a little difficult when you lose somebody that you're so close to, obviously, in that case, her mom. So it'll be a little different this year, but it'll be a celebration of life. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Firsts are always difficult, right? First holidays,
and gratitude. It's all about gratitude.
It is, no question. I mean, traditions change over time, right? And now my wife and I find ourselves hosting Thanksgiving.
Hey.
This is our 4th year.
What do you want me to bring?
Yeah, well, hey, whatever you want, man. Bring the party. I know you can do that. We're hosting about 15 people at our home, and we got a double oven this year, which will help tremendously with efficiency. So we're looking forward to that. But
outstanding.
So we're looking forward to it. Thanksgiving's always an awesome holiday, and glad you get to spend it with family. We do as well, and then we'll be back to work over the weekend. Look forward to that too. It's going to be awesome. The Centennial Game against the Montreal Canadiens. But some work to do before that. You'll be on the call tonight for the game against the Canucks. 3 games left before that Centennial Game. And remember, right, we always talk about Thanksgiving, right, being in playoff position, historically very important. Right now, as we record this, the Bruins are. So they get 4 points over the next couple of games. They'll be in a spot. So, hey, have a good call tonight, Brick.
Thanks, Ed.
All right. That'll do it for the Hockey Hub podcast. Thanks again to Morgan Geekie for joining us. We will see you next time.